Hola, friends. Let me get that light so I'm not so blasted out here. You may continue following along on the same pair deck that you used for math earlier. You don't have to open a separate one up for this. I've got it all contained together. But we are going to pick up with our Tuck Everlasting reading with where we left off on Monday. So this first question, on the first slide, I do enjoy. It says, what exciting event happened in the previous chapter involving the Tux and the man in the yellow suit? Well, as you recall, the man in the yellow suit came out and showed up at the Tux cabin and laid out all his evil plans, as a good villain will do. And as he closed his long speech, he went to take Winnie and forcibly return her to her family, which not only did Winnie not like, but Maid Tuck wasn't having it either. And so her solution was to take the shotgun, grab it by the business end, swing it as hard as she can, and club the man in the yellow suit in the back of his head, at which point he went ka-thump. And now, let's discover his fate. So Winnie was standing with her cheek pressed into Tuck's chest, her arms flung tight around him. She trembled and kept her eyes squeezed shut. She could feel Tuck's breath come and go in little gasps. It was very quiet. The Trigab constable knelt over the sprawled body of the man in the yellow suit, and then he said, "He ain't dead. Leastways, not yet." When he opened her eyes, a crack. She could see the shotgun lying on the grass where May had dropped it. She could see May's hands, too, hanging limp, clenching, then hanging limp again. The sun was scorching hot, and near her a gnat whined. The constable stood up and said, "What'd you hit him for?" He wheezed resentfully. "He was taking the child away," said May. Her voice was dull and exhausted. "He was taking the child against her will." At this, the constable exploded. "Dang it, woman, what you trying to say? Taking that child against her will? That's what you done. You kidnapped that child." When he let go of Tuck's waist and turned around, her trembling had stopped. "They didn't kidnap me," she said. "I came because I wanted to." Behind her, Tuck drew in his breath sharply. "You wanted to?" echoed the constable, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You wanted to?" "That's right," said Winnie unflinchingly. "They're my friends." The constable stared at her. He scratched his chin, eyebrows high, and eased his own shotgun to the ground. And he looked down at the man in the yellow suit who lay motionless in the grass, the blazing sun white on his face and hands. His eyes were closed now, but except for that, he looked more than ever like a marionette. That's the puppet that dances on the strings. A marionette flung carelessly into a corner, arms and legs every which way amidst tangled strings. That one glance she gave him fixed his appearance forever in Winnie's mind. She turned her eyes away quickly, looking to Tuck for relief. But Tuck was not looking back at her. Instead, he was gazing at the body on the ground, leaning forward slightly, his brows drawn down, his mouth a little open. It was as if he were entranced and, yes, envious. Like a starving man looking through a window at a banquet. Think, why would Tuck be envious? Winnie could not bear to see him like that. She reached out a hand and touched him, and it broke the spell. He blinked and took her hand, squeezing it. "Well, anyway," said the constable at last, turning businesslike, "I got to take charge here. Get this feller into the house before he fries. I'm telling you now, if he don't make it, you're in a pickle, you people." "Now, here's what we'll do," he said, pointing at May. "You got to come with me, you and the little girl. I got to get her home. The rest of you stay here with him. You'll look after him. I'll get back with the doctor quick as I can. Should have brought a deputy, but I didn't expect nothing like this to happen. But it's too late now. All right, let's get moving." Miles said softly, "Ma, we'll get you out right away." "Sure, Ma," said Jessie. "Oh, don't worry about me none," said May in the same exhausted voice. "I'll make out." "Make out!" exclaimed the constable. "You people beat all. If this feller dies, you'll get the gallows. That's what you'll get." If that's what you mean by make out. Tuck's face crumpled. The gallows, he whispered. Hanging? That's it, said Constable. That's the law. Now let's get going. Miles and Jesse lifted the man in the yellow suit and carried him carefully into the house, but Tuck stood staring, and Winnie could guess what he was thinking. The constable swung her up onto his horse and directed May to her own saddle, but Winnie kept her eyes on Tuck. His face was very pale, the creases deeper than ever, and his eyes looked blank and sunken, and she heard him whisper again, the gallows. And then Winnie said something she'd never said before, but the words were words she had often heard and often longed to hear. They sounded strange on her own lips and made her sit up straighter. Mr. Tuck, she said, don't worry. Everything's going to be all right. The constable glanced heavenward and shook his head, and then clutching his shotgun, he climbed up behind Winnie and turned the horse toward the path. You first, he barked at May. I gotta keep an eye on you. And as for you, he added grimly, speaking to Tuck, better hope that feller don't die on you. I'll be back as soon as I can. Everything will be all right, Tuck repeated slowly. May slumped on the back of the fat old horse, did not respond, but Winnie leaned round the constable and looked back at Tuck. You'll see, she said, and then she faced forward, sitting very straight. She was going home, but the thought of that was far from her mind. She watched the rump of the horse ahead and the swish of the coarse, dusty hairs as he moved his tail, and she watched the swaying, sagging back of the woman who rode him. Up through the dim pine trees they went, the constable's breath wheezing in her ears, and emerging from the coolness in the green, Winnie saw again the wide world spread before her, shimmering with light and possibility. But the possibilities were different now. They did not point to what might happen to her, but to what she herself might keep from happening. For the only thing she could think of was the clear and terrible necessity. May Tuck must never go to the gallows. Whatever happened to the man in the yellow suit, May Tuck must not be hanged. Because if all they had said was true, then May, even if she were the cruelest of murderers and deserved to be put to death, May Tuck would not be able to die. And this is where you pause the video and write down all of your questions that you might have at this point, or questions that you could ask at this point. Not where you write down things, oh, I think this, or I think that, but questions. Generate your ideas in the form of questions. All right, after everybody's had a chance to write them down, and then you share as a group with your teacher, then you can hit play again and get me started. All right, so pause me now, do your thing, and then we'll start when you're done. All right, moving on. Chapter 21. Winnie pulled her little rocking chair up to her bedroom window and sat down. The rocking chair had been given to her when she was very small, but she still squeezed into it sometimes when no one was looking, because the rocking made her almost remember something pleasant, something soothing that would never quite come up to the surface of her mind, and tonight she wanted to be soothed. The constable had brought her home. They had seized her at once. Sorry, it's late. They'd seized her at once, flinging the gate open and swooping down on her, her mother weeping, her father speechless, hugging her to him, her grandmother babbling with excitement. There was a painful pause, and the constable told them she'd gone away of her own free will, but it only lasted for a moment. They would not believe it, and her grandmother said, "It was the elves! We heard them! They must have bewitched her!" And so they had borne her into the house, and she had taken the bath they insisted upon. They fed and petted her and refused with little laughs and murmurs to accept her answers to their questions. She'd gone away with the Tucks because, well, she just wanted to. The Tucks had been very kind to her, had given her flapjacks, taken her fishing. The Tucks were good and gentle people. All this would have been swept away in any case. However, this good impression of her friends, which she was trying to create, once she told them what happened to the man in the yellow suit. Had they really given him the wood in exchange for finding her? They had. Well, perhaps he wouldn't want it now. May had hit him with the shotgun. He was very sick, and they received this news with mingled hope and horror. So they find out he gets clubbed with the shotgun and might die. What does it mean that they received the news with mingled hope and horror? You can pause and discuss if you like, and then resume when you're ready. All right? And so her father said, Well, I suppose the wood'll be ours again if that man should. That is, if he doesn't. You mean if he dies, Winnie said flatly, and they had sat back, shocked. Soon after, they put her to bed with many kisses, but as they peered at her anxiously over their they peered at her anxiously over their shoulders as they tiptoed out of her room, as if they sensed that she was different now from what she had been before, as if some part of her had slipped away. Well, thought Winnie, crossing her arms on the windowsill. She was different. Things had happened to her that were hers alone and had nothing to do with them. It was the first time, and no amount of telling about it could help them understand or share what she felt. Okay, there's the yellow dot. Pause me. Write down any questions you can ask at this moment, discuss as a group, and then resume. I'm going to have a drink of tea before I resume. All right. No amount of telling about it could help them understand or share what she felt. It was satisfying and lonely both at once. She rocked, gazing out at the twilight, and this soothing feeling came reliably into her bones. That feeling, it tied her to them, her mother, her father, her grandmother, with strong threads too ancient and precious to be broken. But there were new threads now, tugging and insistent, which tied her just as firmly to the tucks. Winnie watched the sky slide into blackness over the wood outside her window. There was not the least hint of a breeze to soften the heavy August night, and then over the treetops on the faraway horizon, there was a flash of white, heat lightning. Again and again it throbbed without a sound. It was like pain, she thought, and suddenly she longed for a thunderstorm. Then she cradled her head in her arms and closed her eyes. At once the image of the man in the yellow suit rose up. She could see him again, sprawled motionless on the sun-blanched grass. He can't die, she whispered, thinking of May. He mustn't. And then she considered his plans for the water in the spring, and Tuck's voice saying, "They'd all come running like pigs to slops." So then she found herself thinking, well, if it's true about the spring, then he has to die. He must. And that's why she did it. And then she heard hoofbeats on the road below, a horse hurrying into village, and not long after there were footsteps and a knocking on the door. Winnie crept out of her room and crouched in the shadows at the top of the stairs. It was the constable, and she heard him saying, "Well, so that's that, Mr. Foster. We can't press no kidnapping charges since your little girl claims there wasn't no kidnapping. But it don't matter now anyway. The doc just got back a few minutes ago. That feller, the one you sold your land to, he's dead." There was a pause, and then the murmur of other voices, and then the sound of a match striking and the acrid smell of fresh cigar smoke. She got him a good one, all right. He never even come to, so it's a open it shut case since I seen her do it. Eyewitness. No question about it, they'll hang her for sure. Winnie went back to her room and climbed into bed. She lay in the dark, propped up in the pillows, and stared at the lighter square of her window at the heat lightning throbbing. It was like pain, she thought again, a dull pain on the fringes of the sky. May had killed the man in the yellow suit. And she, oh no, why can't I see this? And she. I'm going to find it right now. May had killed the man in the yellow suit. Oh, that's a good one. I can't skip that. And she meant to kill him. Winnie had killed a wasp once in fear and anger, just in time to spare herself a stinging. She'd slammed the wasp with a heavy book and killed it. And then seeing its body broken, the thin wings stilled, she'd wished it were alive again. She had wept for that wasp. Was May weeping now for the man in the yellow suit? In spite of her wish to spare the world, did she wish he were alive again? There was no way of knowing, but May had done what she thought she had to do. Winnie closed her eyes to shut out the silent pulsing of the lightning, and now she would have to do something. She had no idea what, but something. May Tuck must not go to the gallows. All right, your last chance to ask questions and discuss. You can shut me down at this point because I have nothing additional to say. Besides, do your questions, discuss them as a group. Next up, you can do the quick talk quiz for today, and then your teacher will hand out the current issue of Time for Kids, the little packet that goes with it. You can work on that till the end of reading, and then you can do IDR, take that into win time. For win time, you can do homework and whatever else is you need. I'll be watching computers. I expect you to be quiet and on task. All right? Be well. I'll see you in the morning.